And I love everything that you're talking about right now. So I'm like, cool. So hello. Who are you, Lance? Who is Lance?
Hi, my name is Lance Riggin. I'm a full-time real estate investor and a member of Pace Morby Sub 2 and Gator community. And my main focus is co-living and raising capital. Um, so yeah, I grew up in Southern California, sunny Southern California. I moved when I was about 18. I'm a high school dropout, right? I never actually finished school, never got my GED, even none of that. Never did any formal education, but I found this cool business model called network marketing when I was in my early 20s, and I got on a path of personal growth and development and started learning about things I was interested in through books and podcasts and stuff and CD trainings. And so, yeah. And I moved to Oregon when I was 18 years old. Because I was such a, boneheaded kid, knucklehead, if you will, like Pace would say. But yeah, I ended up moving up there. Found my now wife. We had our family in Oregon. We started a granite and tile business. That's what I was doing with my stepdad. We had that for over 18 years. And then we started flipping houses. Joined a mentorship about 10 years ago called Fortune Builders, right? And JJ is easy and talks a lot about Fortune Builders. But we joined that. We didn't do anything. Then we ended up a couple years later finally flipping our first house. It was all creative. Our very first deal was creative. And so we started flipping houses on the side. So we were working 14 plus 16-hour days, and Saturdays our kids would come to the flips with us, and they were both in sports too. So like, I love it when people tell me, well, I got a full-time W-2, I'm working 8 hours a day. I'm like, huh, that's cute. That's not an excuse to not get it done. So but yeah, we moved to East Texas. We sold everything we owned, moved to East Texas at the end of 2022 after a lot of things. We can go into whatever you want, but my wife and I went into a really rough time in our relationship, and on the other end of that, we decided we were ready for a change, and we did it. We pulled the trigger, moved, sold everything, including our business, and started completely over. So here we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All of that I would love to go into. First, where in SoCal did you grow up? I'm from LA.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, I love going to visit down there. I love San Diego. I love Orange County. Parts of LA are a lot of fun. I just was down there last summer. I plan to go this summer again, hopefully to go to a Dodgers game. I'm a big Dodgers fan. But yes, so I was born in Granada Hills, and I spent most of my life down there in the Santa Clarita Valley, about 45 minutes north of LA. And my grandparents and my dad lived there, and then we ended up moving to Palmdale. So I consider Palmdale the armpit of Southern California, the Mojave Desert,
Yeah. Okay.
and that's where I lived.
Oh, close enough. I don't meet a lot of people from SoCal. It's usually NorCal or
Yeah,
nowhere in California. So I'm like, hey, yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah. I grew up working in Beverly Hills and Bel Air. My stepdad and my uncle did a lot of really high end marble entryways and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool.
yeah. So if you don't mind, I'd love to learn more about how you got into the business with them. Did they already have the business before you joined, or did you all open it up together? And I mean, you had called yourself kind of a little bit of a knucklehead, so that's where I'm curious as to the psychology a little more of an 18-year-old knucklehead running a or helping run or just work in a granite business.
Yeah, and I was 16 actually, but I worked as a tile setter. A couple years in, no, it was about a year in. My uncle started teaching me how to fabricate marble by hand. Literally by hand. So he was doing these high end marble jobs, like I said, in Bel Air Estates. He did houses like for Vanna White. He did all these like famous actors like James Coburn, an old country western actor from back in the day. So it was super cool as a kid growing up, and I saw an MTV Music Award sitting in this entryway one day, and that was, MTV was a big time thing for me growing up. Like Headbangers Ball, I was into heavy metal and stuff, and but there I found out that it was the lead, that it was the drummer's parents' house from Guns N' Roses that lived in that house, and I was like, whoa! It said on the plaque on the MTV Music Awards said Guns N' Roses. I was like, what? So, but that was cool. And so I actually worked with my stepfather for about 10 years before I started my own business. I was about 23 years old when I started my own business, and that was in Oregon.
Oh man. And what was it again? Was it the same kind of granite tiling?
Yeah, it was called Worldwide Granite Marble and Tile. So I actually have the
Ooh.
logo tattooed on my calf.
Damn. It made that big of an impact that you needed it on you.
Yeah, yeah, and that's funny because people always ask me. They're like, well, back then, even before I sold it, they're like, "Oh, what if it doesn't work out? What if you sell it?" It's like, what doesn't matter to me. Tattoos are just, parts of my life. I like to get tattoos that have meaning, and so that was a crucial part of my life. It brought me on some cool vacations. Brought our family to Hawaii. We did so. It's just part of my life.
That's so cool. So do all of your tattoos represent something? Or are some of them just like, yeah,
Yes.
that one's fun?
Yeah, they do. They all have meaning and representation. I have a big one on my calf. It's like most of my calf is covered in a tattoo of actually Echo Park and
Ooh.
Oregon on the bottom. It like fades. It's just like cityscape, and it fades into a tree line, down towards the bottom of my part of my leg. Yeah. So I love that. It's my
Ooh.
favorite tattoo, I think. Or this one. You want to see one here? Check this out. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let's see. Look at that.
Ooh.
Right?
Wow. That's
That's funny.
intense. What does that one
Yeah.
signify?
That's for me, it's the creator of heaven and earth. It's the line of Judah. So
Ah,
I let the artist kind of do her thing. I wasn't a big fan of the colored face at first, but I decided, you know what? I want this person to let her, artistic creativeness kind of come out, and I'm gonna just let her do it the way she envisioned it. So, but anyways, yeah.
mm. Well, so what was the initial meaning behind that one?
This one, it's just I'm a believer, and so I like to have God as kind of the center of my universe, and it's something I can rely on, and you can see my photo back here as a guy praying, and there's an army of angels coming to his aid. I just for me when I get that, I call it like the devil on my shoulder, right? The good and evil,
Mhm.
like when you get those voices in your head, that imposter syndrome saying you're not good enough.
Yep.
I just tend to kind of flick it off, but it's nice to be able to have something that you believe in, that you can
Yep.
talk to. For me, that's God, right? So it is what it is, and I don't judge people. I don't care what people's backgrounds are. You know what I mean? I'm not one of those people. I have a faith. I'm not a religious person. I'm not.
Mhm.
I don't really follow organized religion anymore, and so but yeah, it's nice. It helps me in days that I'm struggling for sure.
Have you always felt like this? I mean, I know you just said that you don't follow kind of organized religion anymore. Were you brought
Yeah.
up like with a certain faith, or did something happen?
No, I wasn't actually. So I had actually bad experience. My what I saw from Christianity as a kid was scary. The evangelists on TV with the putting the head on the hand on the head, and they're like, oh, falling backwards. I was like, yeah, that's fake, and that's what I saw. But my grandmother was very very, I like to say Christiany, right? It was very it just was she was kind of really mean, actually a mean person, and like literally would not let me and my cousins in her house when we were visiting. Like we had to stay outside, and if we did come in the house, we had to sit on the floor. Like she had like plastic on their couches. We couldn't even sit on the
Ah,
plastic covers on the couch.
my
And
God.
then one day I heard her praying in the back room, and she intentionally left the door open, and she's just yelling at God and saying how disgusted she was with herself and her body, and how much she needed help, and it was really like sketch to me. So that's kind of that's what I had in my mind, growing up. So, but I had something in my life happen that brought me to God. And it was a
Mm.
very profound experience, that I experienced God. And I actually ended up after that. And if we can go into it if you want, it doesn't matter to me what we talk about really. But it changed my whole life, basically. So
Wow. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But that's really interesting. I don't have the same experience at all in any way.
mhm.
But I feel like I've heard that happen to a few people that I'm close with within the last couple of months. I don't know what they've been going through, but there was one of my friends that had called me as he was on a road trip and just said, "Hey, I think I found God." And it was a really I guess kind of profound and just really interesting things to
Mhm.
hear that people actually like find peace within something. So I was raised.
Yeah.
My mom was very like spiritual and manifesting and more about the universe and the universe slash God. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
agnostic, but I very much
Mhm.
value a lot of the values and the teachings of a lot of different things. And
Yes.
so it's difficult for me to say I believe in this, like I believe in this
Mhm.
one creator. Um, there could be one, totally open to it. Um, but it's just interesting when people are on like either side where they're like, there is absolutely one person or a being. They made all
Yeah.
of this and such. And then at the other side and that was where my friend was, he's like, no, I don't believe in it at all. I like the lessons and the morals, but like that just isn't true. So to see somebody actually go from that to I believe is just wild.
Yeah.
What
Well,
what
I
does it
have
take?
so I have a reference for you. There's a really cool DVD, or not DVD. You could probably find it on Netflix now, right? Nobody does DVDs anymore, but it's called A Case for Christ. And this atheist goes to prove that the Bible is a story and fabricated, and he traveled all over the world to disprove it. And what ended up happening was he converted to Christianity at the end of it, because he found overwhelming evidence that everything was real and everything was true. He could not disprove it. And it was a really amazing story. I've sent it to a few of my friends who are kind of like teetering and thinking about it. And like I said, I don't ever push religion or my faith on anybody. It's just been a really, really solid place for me to go to in hard times. And I'm very grateful and thankful every day for what I have. Having that attitude of gratitude is really important. But
Mhm.
there's more proof, more signs that, I mean, there's more evidence that show that there is some kind of creation than we just bam happened and everything was here and
Yep.
everything's perfect and everything lives and breathes and feeds off the everything else. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not the philosopher. Like, I'm not going to get deep into all that, but it just, for me personally, I had something happen and it was like, whoa. Because I actually mocked God. I was pretty much atheist growing up too. And
Mm.
I didn't believe in it. I thought it was a bunch of BS. And so now I feel like I need to tell my story. Let's just talk about it. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not going to take too long. So my wife and I was young. I was in my early 20s, I think 23, and my daughter was like 2 or 3 years old. And I had this 93 Chevy pickup with an extra cab, and she'd sit in the middle in her car seat behind us. And my wife and I were driving home one day from, I don't remember where we were going, maybe grocery store or something. And oh, sorry about that. And
You're good.
we were arguing about something. I can't remember what we were arguing about, but my wife was leaning into to God a little bit. She had known God more in her childhood, and so I was just like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, it's not for me. I'm not interested. No, she was talking about church and this. I'm like, no, 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 no. And so we're driving home. We got into this little argument about something, and she asked me, don't forget what God's done for you. She said that to me, don't forget what God's done for you. And I looked at her and I was like, what has God ever done for me? You know? And I mean, we were struggling. I was making $14 an hour You know what I mean? Like we were barely making ends meet and living in a little crappy duplex in the shitty part of town. And so I literally, like, right after I said that, my daughter, like I said, just barely started talking. She said something that was like that scared me. It's just you hear about the fear of God. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
She said, "Daddy, don't you remember?" And I was like, "What?" It startled me because it was just so odd for her to even be in the conversation. And I said, "What?" She's like, "Daddy, don't you remember?" And it was like in Oregon, and it's all dark and gloomy outside, like about to rain. And I'm not, and this is exactly what happened. I'm not lying. Like, I looked back to see her, and there was a ray of sunshine shining on her, like just this little spot opened up in the sky where the sun was just shining on my daughter. And it hit me
Oh,
really hard that God had given me this gift of life to take care of and to cherish. And it scared the shit out of me, and I jumped out of the truck. My heart was pounding, and immediately in that moment, I knew God existed, and I was like, it scared me so bad. I was shaking. And I went and I started reading the Bible that day. I didn't know what I was doing, but we ended up finding a really cool church, and I raised my family in that church. And I haven't gone to church in a few years, but we went, I mean, every weekend, pretty much all the services. I ended up joining a men's ministry team and all this
wow.
stuff, but it was just crazy. It completely changed my life. Yeah, it was wild.
Uh, wow, that really touched me. I've been really getting a lot of baby fever now that I'm living with the Muds and I'm around their kid all the time. And she's just obviously a blessing. Just she's hilarious. And the more, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
baby fever. And I love children. And I love that,
Aw.
that happens where it's just like
Mhm.
God speaks to you through them. And that was the perfect thing to happen. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Yeah, it
speechless.
was wild. I mean, I love telling that story. Thank you so much. But it's there were some things though. What's cool. There's some things led up to that. Like there was somebody trying to. My wife was going to church with a friend of ours. Kind of just, she's like, I want to go to church. She used to go with her mom sometimes. And then this other guy in this business we were in, one of the multi-level marketing businesses we were in, they had a service, a church service Sunday, and I was like, nah, I'm good, dude. And like I said, was not into it at all. And he afterwards we went to eat some lunch on the way home from this weekend event, and he asked me some questions. He's like, Lance, do you mind if I ask you some questions? He's like, hey, it's cool. You guys didn't want to go to the church service. Am I frozen?
You're good.
Okay. He said it's cool. Okay. He's like, man, I get it. He's like, can I ask you a couple questions? I said, sure. He was asking my permission, which I respect, and he wasn't trying to push anything on me. So he goes, well, hey, man, let me ask you a question. If you go on living life like you are now, and the Bible is not true, what do you think is going to happen to you? I said, well, nothing, right? I'm going to go in the ground. I have no idea. Probably nothing. End of story. He goes, okay, well, let me ask you another question. If you go on living life the way you are now, and the teachings in the Bible are true, what do you think is going to happen to you? And I was like, "Ew," he roped me into a hole, right? I was like, well, I'm probably going to go to hell, And so, but there was some things leading up to this moment with my daughter, though. I feel like God was trying to reach me, and I've heard that happen to people over and over again. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't really looking; he sought me out. I feel, and so it was wild.
Mhm.
But, anyways, that's my personal experience.
Wow. Yeah. That was so impactful. It impacted me. Goodness. Wow. Well, what
But
else?
yeah,
Or I guess so I know that now you're like, you just kind of the values and such, it seems like you kind of portray and you value as well. Um, do you and kind of turning this into you're from sub two and real estate and even in the business that you had owned before, um how have you or how have teachings or values kind of shifted or translated into your business life?
that's a great question. I felt early on when I joined Sub 2 in the Gator community that I felt Well, first off, I felt like that I belonged here. I felt like this community was something special. I knew it was. I've been involved in a few businesses similar, but just what Pace has built in our communities is unparalleled, and I felt the value immediately in the community. The trainings were alone worth the money, right? But the community is priceless, I feel. And like I started just having conversations and getting Zooms with people. Well, it was Google Meets at first before I had a Zoom account, but I would just start getting on Zooms with people and pouring into them, adding as much value as I possibly could to every conversation, pouring my life experience into it. And I don't really talk about faith, but I don't have to. You know what I mean? Like I'm helping people every single day, and if it goes into that, great. If not, then fine. It doesn't bother me what people's beliefs are. Like I said, I will align myself with people who are doing right and doing good and doing, taking action like I am. You know what I mean? I don't really care what their
Mhm.
background is, but just pouring into people, adding value wherever I could, just all the strengths. I figured out what my strengths were and how I could help other people. And I realized early on, the more people I help, the more opportunity is going to present itself to me. And the more opportunity that comes, the more money we can make, right? And the more money we can make, the more I can help my family and free up my time and live that life of freedom. That's what it's all about. And that's our focus is it's just it's awesome. So we squatted up with a bunch of people. We ended up doing like insane amount of deals last year. We did like 60 deals in the Gator community, and then we closed on $2.5 million in real estate last year as well in the sub two community.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was crazy, crazy, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. What were all of those single family or multifamily or land? Like what was it?
So yeah, so we bought a mobile home park. We worked on that acquisition for about
Ooh.
7 months till we
Ah, I will edit this. Yeah. Woo. And he's
shoot.
back.
Man, I don't know
Good.
what's going on with my internet. Sorry about that.
Cool.
I'll have to do a little edit.
Yep. I usually
Where did
don't,
we
but for you,
Okay,
um,
sorry. My
no, you're
internet's
fine.
usually
You're fine. You were talking about the mobile home park.
Yes. Okay, so we got brought in a capital partner and we went 50-50 partners with her, and she brought $200,000 to the table. We actually had in that a war chest. We had an acquisition fee, which was dope. We learned from Vina, right? The queen of
Nice.
multifamily.
Yep.
So we made a $25,000 on that purchase of that park, right? And and it's funny. So I ran into Vina. I'll just do a quick side note. I ran into Vina at Aspire and got to talk to her for a little bit. She's like, Lance, I want to have you on my podcast. I'm going to have my people reach out to you. You and Jesse, can she join? I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, you guys are literally the only people who've put an acquisition fee on their deal in the group so far. I was like, what? Holy crap. That's awesome. So that was so dope.
That's
um,
awesome.
but
Are
yeah,
you in
it,
multiple?
it's, it was, it hasn't been all, rainbows and sunshine. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
We were focused on multifamily, but we shifted gears.
Okay. Sorry. Keep going. Keep
My
going.
plan is to get back into multifamily towards yeah, I want to get back into multifamily towards the end of the year. I need some today money though, and multifamily is not good for today money, really. It's great for long term. So but anyways, we did 5 sub 2 deals. We stopped 2 foreclosures. We did a wholesale deal, and We picked up a short-term luxury rental in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we picked up a midterm sub two deal in Bossier City. So it was amazing. It was an amazing year. It really was stellar first year.
Oh my gosh, first year. That's crazy. Okay, can you so
Mhm.
obviously you're talking about how, you have strengths and how you kind of use or learned how to leverage them and get to, that amazing first year. How did you figure out your strengths? Did you take the Clifton strength test or did you have a coach or I would love to learn.
Yeah, we've done that. So my wife and I, we've been learning and growing for 20 years, so we have done the Clifton Strength tests. We've done the love language tests. We've done tons of different tests. And if my wife was in here, I'd have to ask her what they were because I don't remember. but, but I just know what my strengths are because I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years and I know where my strengths are and I know where my value is, so for me, my strengths are in networking, connecting, raising capital. Really, those are my biggest strengths. I would say I'm really good at negotiating deals too. I'm pretty good at closing. Um, but really, relationships, building relationships is where I really flourish, and just connecting people, like just giving. I really love to give and to help people as much as I can, and it's almost been to a default now because my business is growing and I'm scaling it, and it's hard for me to back out and not help people that need the help or want the advice because I just get a ton of referrals now at this point, and it's a struggle for me mentally because I really enjoy it and I get fulfillment, especially when I see somebody take the advice or take my encouragement or see those seeds that I planted grow and just kick ass in the community. I love that so much, like more than anything else, probably.
Mhm.
So it's tough. I'm trying to balance it. I'm thinking about doing like a new, like basically starting a whole new YouTube channel just to help newbies out, help new real estate investors, and help people kind of get on the right track. So I tell people though, the value. It's easy to find your value and your strengths. You have to look back to your W-2 or whatever your previous life experiences is, any challenges or failures that you've overcome and learned from, that's where you get your value and that's where you get your strengths from.
Mm,
Like you don't people come in and they go, "Oh, I don't know anything about real estate. I have nothing to offer." And I stop them in their tracks. I'm like, "You need to get out of that mindset. You do have value to offer. Stop saying that because
mhm.
just because you don't know anything about real estate doesn't mean you can't add value to somebody's group, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to figure out what that value is. I can't tell you. That's the thing. People come to me all daily and go, "Hey, so and so told me to connect you. So and so, oh, I saw you on Facebook. Oh, I saw you on this Zoom." And I'm like, "Yeah, hey, what's up?" They go, "Well, how can I add value to you?" And that's you get that day in and day out several times a day. It's a question that I can't answer, right? Because I don't know
Yep.
what your value is. So just trying to I do a Loom. I send a Loom video out to just kind of give people an idea of what their value is, how to figure it out from whatever they've done in their past, you know. But yeah, so I think it's important that people know that they're valuable.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me hopefully you didn't hear the
We
loud
good?
motorcycle. Yeah. Can you hear me? That kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of, Alex Hormozy-ish. So I've seen this video where he was telling people, "Stop asking, 'How can I bring value to you?'" You're asking somebody
Yeah.
to do a favor by making them think about, "Okay, what do I need?" And then not even saying, "Oh, I need help with this," because they don't even know if you can help them with that. So it's not only thinking like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, I need help with this," but then they also have to ask like, "Well, what do you do?" And so Alex was saying, figure
Yep.
out what you are good at, figure out what they need, like by researching them. And then when you go to them, don't say, "Hey, how can I bring value?" Say, "Hey, I noticed that, you may be lacking in this part and I wanted to offer my services and stuff," which that's awesome.
Yes. Exactly.
And how
Yep.
do
That's
you,
exactly right. And so yeah.
sorry, there's a lag, but keep going.
Yeah, I know. No, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to ask, I think, especially me being in the family field, I'm definitely interested in learning how you are, a great connector and great networker, and how you actually like raise capital, all
Mhm.
of that. There was a better question
Yes,
wrapped into there that I lost. Continue.
that's okay. I know what you're getting at. Yeah, so I basically, um, for, as far as connecting goes, I just started getting into Zooms, live chats, Facebook groups, and being intentional. I call it, and Pace had me do a 12 days of Christmas training on networking with intention and branding. And so
I was going to ask about that.
basically, like, you have to just, especially so, yeah, I tell people all the time, if you treat your business like a business, it'll pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, it's going to pay you like a hobby. You have to be very intentional in what you're doing, right? So that's the biggest miss I see people all the time. They just don't really dial in on the relationships, you know. So I would get into live Zooms and I would connect with 4 or 5 people and I would go, and here's the funny thing, like if you leave it up to somebody else, they're not going to set up as a calendar invite. They're not going to probably send you a Zoom. I rarely have people do that with me. I always initiate that. I don't leave it up to happenstance. You know, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I connect with this person and see if we can add value to each other, and very
Smart.
intentional. Put it on the calendar. You know, I'll put us in. I'll text them and I'll say, hey, what's good for you? Put it on the calendar. Get on a Zoom, and that's how I started connecting with people. You know,
Mm.
just doing that day in, day out, all the time, and I started finding people who had money. You know, it's crazy. Like I started telling my story, you know, to people. I learned how I could tell my story, and so I go into my drop out of high school. You know, my dad wasn't around, and the reason why I tell my story and I go through from 16 all the way to now is because I know there's a part of my story that's going to be relatable to almost everybody. You know what I mean? Overcoming hurdles and challenges and failures and continuing to move forward. That's a story that people love to hear, you know? And so when I tell that story, people feel like they've known me, right? For some time. And that's what, and it's crazy. This is what started happening. I didn't understand it until probably midway through the year what was going on. But people were just like, "Hey, Lance, I have like $500,000 in a self-directed IRA. What can we do? You know, I have $200,000 sitting in a bank account. What can we do?" And I was just like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Like the very first Zoom, you know. And I was like, "Man,
Mhm.
something special's happening here. I need to figure something out. Something's going on here." And I talked to a friend of mine, and he said, "Man, Lance, you have a huge opportunity here to basically connect these people and monetize that." And I was like, whoa, dude. So next opportunity, the light bulb went off, bing. So the very next opportunity I had, I put myself into the deal, and I didn't look back, you know. And has it all been awesome and amazing? No, it hasn't. It's been a lot of failures, a lot of failing forward, a lot of learning lessons, you know.
Mhm.
We learned really well how to vet. We learned how to underwrite better. Now we're finally bringing on an underwriter to work with us. But I've got a systems and processes guy I'm working with who's been really helping me dial in my CRM, and so it was really just being intentional, you know, again, and just sharing and being vulnerable with people. And I haven't even talked
Mhm.
about the biggest impact on my entire life yet. You know, so if we have time, we can go into that. But
Go ahead.
I tell my story, and that's what you got to do. Like, honestly, be vulnerable with people. Good, good, bad, and ugly. I love. Okay, I'm writing a book about this, by the way. Currently, I just actually hired a publisher, and I have a template that they gave me. So I'm actually in the early stages of writing my first book. Um, so yeah, here we go. At the end of 2020, so my wife and I had been together for almost 25 years, almost 20 years at the time, and we were she was having a hard time. Like she was going through some shit, and I didn't really know. She talked about maybe she had anxiety. We had no idea what was going on. She came home one day after work, and she had a letter she wanted to read to me and my kids. And she sat at the dinner table, read us this letter, and I didn't hear a lot of it because I was upset, and I was being selfish at the time. My camper trailer was gone. I was going fishing that weekend for my birthday, like in a few days, and the trailer was gone. I was like, "Where's the travel trailer?" And she's like, "Oh, we need to go talk inside." And so she read us this letter. All I remember hearing was, "I need some time away. I feel like I'm lost. I don't know who. I don't have an identity. I don't know who I am." And she was having this identity crisis, and there was more to it than that. But she got up. She was crying. She asked for a hug, and I refused because I was so pissed that this was happening that I had no idea it was coming. And she left, and I was completely lost. And within a couple of days, my heart started breaking. Right, I was completely broken. And I couldn't stop messaging her. I was tripping out. She came to my fishing spot, and she sits down with me, and I'd never seen this person before. This was not the wife, my wife. Like, she comes in stone cold, no emotions, looks at me dead in the face and says, "I'm not coming home." And she had asked for 3 months away, but I didn't know what to do. So I was like completely freaking out, and I couldn't leave her alone. So she told me she wasn't coming home, and my heart, like, I was like so in shock. I didn't know what to do. I tried to stay on the trip, but within 2 days, I started realizing that I had made some big mistakes, and I hadn't been attentive to our relationship, and I hadn't been listening really well. And I was so driven and focused on my success and our success in our future that I started losing focus of my why. The whole reason why I was doing it all to begin with was to vacation and spend time with her and travel the world and do that RV life. And so I started digging in. I made a phone call to a really good friend of mine, and he said, because I knew he had been through something like this. His wife actually left him for a year, and so I reached out to him. It was a really close friend of mine who I'd gone to church with for a number of years that I was in this ministry with. But he was like one of the coolest, most down to earth people I'd ever known. Really, like, if there were anointed people like called to help others, like, he's one of those guys. Like, genuine human being, never gets really weird, got Christiany, right? Like, he goes, "Lance, I got to tell you a few things, and it's going to be hard to hear." I said, "Jerry, hit me with it." And he goes, "First of all, you have to give her some space, man. You can't keep bugging her. You got to let her go. Um, and second thing is, you have to be patient because you don't know how long it's going to take, or if she's going to come back at the end of the day." And man, that was hard to hear. And I was like, "Damn." So I started, I just left her alone. I gave her space. And I went to work. Like, I work. Like, I'm not afraid to work. Like, I'm not a quitter. Like, I wasn't about to let her go. I was like, "I don't care what she says. I feel in my heart that this isn't the end of this." I had a feeling it wasn't the end. But in here, I'm like scared to death. I'm freaking out, panicking, started getting anxiety, depression. I'd never had any problems with any mental health ever in my life. And so that stuff started creeping in, panic attacks, and I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Mm.
I started just really getting on my knees praying. And as I started learning how to get out of those situations with thinking about the good times and good things with my kids. And that's what really kind of helped me. And I was journaling. I started journaling a lot.
Wow.
I filled up 3 notebooks of journaling, and it was kind of self-medicating for me a little bit. But through that whole thing, I was also drinking very heavily in the evenings because I was trying to drown the pain. I was hurting real bad. Um, I would come home to an empty bed, and I had to work with her still. Like, I'd come home and I would just be cold. Like, the room was so cold and empty. Very, very hard to sleep a lot of nights. And I'd have come to work the next day and had to put a smile on my face and tell her good morning and see her every freaking day. And I couldn't hug her and squeeze her. Here's what happened. I was still deeply in love with her, but she had fallen out of love with me a couple years prior. And I started realizing that I was a big part of the reason why she left. She didn't tell me. Here's the crazy thing. She didn't call me an asshole. She didn't tell me I was a piece of shit. Like, none of that stuff happened. She was
Mhm.
like, just, "I got to go." And so, because of the way she handled it, it put me in a position to where I was willing to fight for her and not give up, because if it
Yeah.
would have went the other way around, who knows what would have happened, but she didn't. She knew I was going to be hurting. What she told me later, she's like, "I knew it was going to destroy you, and I didn't have the heart to add to that pain that you were going to be feeling." And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So what happened was, I'm listening to this audiobook. My daughter actually tells me, she gives me some advice because my daughter, unfortunately, she was 20 at the time. She was like the mediary, right? Like she was like,
Yeah.
Dad, you know, you, you, you got to learn. Let me give you a little advice, Dad. She's like, you got to learn how to listen. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Mhm.
I listen. I start talking over her. She's like, Dad, stop. You're doing it right now. Stop it. She's like, you need to learn how to listen to her. She told me like I was a 2-year old. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then you know what happened? I feel like it was God kind of gave me this vision of over and over. It was like a broken record. I started seeing her come to me, trying to talk to me, and me not paying attention over and over. It started playing in my head like a broken record. Forget it. You're not listening. Never mind. You're not listening. Just forget it. Just forget it. And walking away. And I was like, oh my God. I realized in that moment that I really screwed up. And then I started reflecting more and getting some quiet time and meditating, and just really trying to clear my mind and think. And I started seeing a handful of other things that I was doing wrong, areas that I was coming short. And I just started working on those areas. I listened to that audiobook, How to Listen with Intention, 5 times within like a month or two. I listened, I read, what is that book? The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And it was a
Mm.
struggle for me at first. It was a little woo woo, right? Like we were talking a little
Yeah.
bit about that earlier. Like, it was a little woo woo to start off, but I really wanted to get into it. And it changed my life, really did. I realized I wasn't living in the moment. I was constantly focused on the future, and that was a big part of my problem. So that book really helped me correct some things. And then in the audio book, How to Listen with Intention, they talk about conversational narcissism, and that was me to a T. And that's most men, in fact. I've found over the years, and this is why I decided to write a book, because I've talked about this in circles of very successful men, like Go Bundance groups and entrepreneurs. And every time I tell the story about this book, How to Listen with Intention, everybody wants to know what the author, and they're like, oh man, I have that problem. Because here's what it is a lot of men struggle with we want to fix everything, we want to help you, we want to have the solution to your problems, and that's really what it boils down to. And so what happens for a conversational narcissist is you're thinking about the solution to the problem as soon as the first sentence comes out, and you're not listening to anything else. And that's
Mhm.
what was happening to me. Once I recognized that, I was like, oh man. So I go through all this crazy stuff. We start having conversations at work, and then we start building a new relationship, a friendship, right? And then like I started inviting her to dinner. She turned me down a few times, and then she finally agreed to come over. But I was cultivating this whole new friendship with her, and that's it. I gave her space. I never tried to make any moves on her. I was very respectful, and I didn't know. I still didn't know. But what ended up happening was after 5 months or so, we were taking a drive one day, and I was bringing her out to see some sunsets and everything. And we are driving to see a sunset. So that's one of the things I was starting to, my mindset was shifting. I was getting into more spiritual stuff, to be honest with you. I was learning about what she was into, and she's like kind of like you. She's been a Christian most of her life, but we're kind of more spiritual Christians. And I know it's like a taboo, whatever, but like I started looking into crystals and healing and all these different things. Like, right, I wanted to know more about what she was into, so I started doing some research, and I started finding that actually crystals do harness, energy. And I was like, whoa! And so that started shifting my mind a little bit, and I started learning more about it and just knowing some of the things she was into, so I could talk to her about it. And
Mm.
it just started turning into a really cool thing. And then we were on our drive to that sunset that night. She looks at me, she's all, do you want to put your hand on my leg? She was wearing this like little mini skirt and she has the most amazing thighs, right? And she's like, do you want to put your hand, do you want to touch my leg? And I was like, what? I was like a little kid. I was like, yeah. She's like, go ahead. And so that was the first sign. I was like, dude. And so, but what happened was she ended up deciding, I said, look, I understand that I hurt you, and I'm really, really sorry. And I said, look, I'm not asking you for to give me, everything up front. I'm just asking you for a chance to prove to you that I can be the man of your dreams. and if it doesn't work out, then that's fine. But I cannot live my life without knowing that I failed you as a husband. I can't do that. Like I have to get this chance to just to show you what I'm really made of, right? Because I didn't know. Like that's the thing. We're freaking boneheads. Like I didn't know this stuff was happening. We weren't communicating on a good level. I had no idea what
Yeah.
was happening, right? And so anyways, we ended up getting back together. Needless to say, after 6 months of her being gone, and I proposed to her flying over the Grand Canyon in a Cessna, and asked her to renew our if she would marry me again, and she said yes. So it was a really cool story, and there's a lot more to it, but after that, we our hearts changed, our minds changed. We wanted to be in nature more. We turned a little more hippie, and just like kind of really was drawn to nature. I wanted to be like I love going outside, like with my bare feet on the ground. Like I want to be in
Mhm.
nature. I want to, I don't know. There's all these cool things that happened through that whole process, So I really moved away from organized religion through that, and so but like I said, I have a strong faith in Jesus and in God, but it's different than it ever has been. It's not like it used to look, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an amazing story. A
Yeah.
miraculous one at that.
Oh man, I'm so glad for the ending and for the ending of that story, and the beginning of you guys again just in a different way, and not just you guys in a relationship, but it seems like you as a person as well. You seem like you're totally different, and I'm assuming
Yeah,
she is also different than how she was as well, and it's just so beautiful.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, even the way that you say, you're the whole, journey about it. I'm so glad that everything worked out well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we live a life that we just really love. Like we really do. I love doing what I do. We get to hang out. We bought some property so we can go and just unplug and be in nature. Like we're surrounded by hundreds of acres of farmland. So like it's awesome, you know. I love it. For now, right? For now. We're nearing the end. We might probably gonna keep this place as a rental and then get closer to Dallas, I think. But
Yep.
but it's been an amazing experience. It really has. And I've thanked her countless times for leaving me because if she hadn't have left me, I would not have been able to do the work that I did. I already know it.
Mm. And he's got he wait. 4, 3. Ah.
Damn it. Yeah, I've never had this problem before. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. That just means that we'll have to, sometime have another podcast live maybe.
I know, right? I think
Ah.
it's the clouds maybe rolling through. Yeah, I would love to. We can talk more about business stuff next time, but I think it's important to have conversations like this. I think it's, you know, just real. We're raw and real with each other. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
Mhm.
the best way to make potential business partners is just being yourself.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest things that I'm learning just, as a person and then also as a business owner. And I feel like I get the most out of conversations like these. I mean, I love going into detail and actually learning about how to run a business and all like the systems and, different syndication methods and everything like that. But really, I feel as a person, and because I am relatively young, especially with compared to everybody else in the field, I I love personal development. I love it because I think that if I become a better person, then I become a better business owner, become a better, business partner or anything. And then that means I can help more people. And I'm just very thankful for people like you that not only are in the community and already do that. And you just are just so amazing. But I appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about stuff like this and really allowing us to not only peer into your life a little bit, but really learn from you. So I, I thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about all of that.
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry about the lag. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I agree. It's just crucial to to build real long lasting relationships. You've got to be vulnerable. You have to be open imperative. It really is. You don't have to tell them all your dirty laundry, but it's important that people know that you've had struggles and you've had failures, and you learned from those failures and the mistakes that you made, and you have grown from them and continue to learn and grow. It's so crucial. I saw a statistic, and we can end with this, but I've seen a statistic that says 88% of adults never read another book out of high school in the U.S. Is that scary?
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah. Is that insane? I know. I was like, whoa. And I used to hate reading, but I love it now because I know I'm growing and I'm learning.
Yeah, it's powerful. Well, thank you. I know that you have a meeting, so I'll let you
Yes.
go, but I'm really
Okay.
looking forward to when we can chat again. And if you want to come on stream, or if we see each other in Dallas again sometime, that'd be amazing. But thank you so much, Lance. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yes, thank you. It's been an amazing time with you. I love you. I love everybody, but I really love you. I've met you, last year, and we've met a few times. I love your energy, your vibe. You're such a sweetheart. Um, People can find me on Instagram at Lance Riggin. Super simple, Lance Riggin. On Facebook, my entire life is on Facebook, and I do a ton of branding. So those are the two best places to find me.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
All
thank you
right,
so
thank you
much.
so
Have a
much.
wonderful day.
You too.
Bye now.
All right, bye bye.